sind zurück mit
So how are you? Like I feel like I haven't. Oh God, is that Alexa closing your curtains?
Yeah.
So it was funny. After hearing all that, of course, my son said, "Really, he can't close his own curtains." But it's probably a lot cooler to just press a button, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't seen you in a long. I've been kind of like, unfortunately, like a lot has come up in my life. Like we've had 2 deaths in the family, like 1 week followed by another week. And so it's just kind of, and you know, it's older relatives. And that's kind of always tough, especially if you have an older parent, because all of a sudden, you know, there's a sadness of somebody in your family passing, but then also trying to help the people close to you kind of deal with the feelings that they're feeling, you know. And I think that a lot of people can kind of sometimes relate to things like that, of getting to a certain point where you're kind of like looking after, for some of us, our parents more than they're looking after us. You know, there's that kind of role reversal.
Yeah.
Um, and so obviously, you know, as I've said many times, my mom's 80. And so when there's a passing of somebody in the family and it's obviously younger than her, it makes her think about a lot her own mortality. So we had to give her like some extra TLC, which I think is actually in the long run, it's good for everybody,
Yeah.
right? Like
It's a good
TLC,
reminder. It's healthy, I think,
yeah, to kind
not to
of
take
think
things for
about, yeah,
granted. Yeah.
yeah. And I think that the TLC is nice too. So, um, we got lost. Something I love. I love getting lost. Do you like getting lost, or are you not
It
a
depends on the
fan of getting
timing.
lost?
If I have time to get lost, I like it.
I
If
love
I'm,
getting lost.
if I have an appointment, I don't like getting lost.
I get lost in, like, if I have an appointment and I get lost, I'm not one to really like kind of stress, which can be bad, I suppose. Like some people could view that that is bad. Like I don't care about being late for the appointment, but I kind of sometimes think, well, maybe this is where life says I should be at this given point in time, right? Um, so there's that. And I just like getting lost. I like that kind of unknown. A lot of people don't like the unknown path. And that's okay. Like just some people don't like that unknown path. I think for me, sometimes the unknown path is a little bit, it can be intoxicating sometimes
Yeah.
because the possibilities are endless, right? That's the thing about like having an uncharted path. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah.
And I think that even growing up, it's like whenever somebody tried to chart me on a path, that's just do the opposite. Like, I don't want to be on your path.
Yeah.
Like, who says your path is a good path? Like, what if your path sucks? What if there's a better path? Like, what if the path that you think is beautiful is unappealing to me? Like, what if I want the other path? Like, I think that that's a tough thing. I feel bad for my parents, because when I think about it now, it's like no matter what they said, that they were doomed from the start. No matter what they said, I wanted to go the other way.
Yeah.
And it wasn't to just be rebellious, but it was just trying to do something for me. It was like my choice, my decision. Even all the like the messes I've made or encountered, right? Like it's funny when you start to grow up, your parents are like, oh, you know, I wanted to protect you from this or that. But sometimes it's like, you have to make those messes. You have to learn how to clean them up yourself, and you have to learn how to move on from them when you can.
yeah, the safe path is not always the best one, and that
Right.
resonates with me very much at the moment.
Yeah. I mean, I think that a lot of times too, if you always take the safe, comfortable path, then there's not going to be all those like kind of innovative surprises.
Yeah,
And I think that those kind of times in my life when I didn't have, when I look back and I think about those times in my life that I've had those kind of biggest growth spurts, it's like just, yeah, that uncharted path. Cause then you kind of have to like jimmy on the spot, figure out, you know,
yeah, and I think there's a certain freedom in that. It's uh, yeah, it can make you feel anxious, but it's also exciting.
yeah,
You know, not knowing what you're doing this time next year is, you know, at my age, at our age, is intoxicating to me.
yeah,
If I knew what I was going to be doing next year, I'd see that as failure.
yeah,
If I could predict what I'll be doing this time next year, or even 5 years, it's it's boring.
yeah. And I mean, and that's not necessarily going to be the case for everybody. I mean, some people
True.
want that, you know, kind of security to say, okay, this year I'll be doing that. But, you know, that's one thing I've come across in life is that we've all got different desires for what we want out of life. And I don't think that any of them are wrong, you
Yeah,
know? I mean, because I think that everybody's desires come from all their own personal experiences and encounters, which we can't all know what everybody else goes through.
yeah,
So that's why I'm always like telling my son, I'm like, we have to kind of be, just kind of like forgiving and open to people because we have no idea what anybody's gone through in life. And they can only make their best judgments in life with whatever, you know, experiences that they've got. But if they don't have as many as person A or person B, then they're not obviously going to make the same decisions. And I think that that's kind of unfortunate segue into something I want to talk about with you because I'm curious about your opinions on this. Um, and I don't like to be a negative person. You know, I'm not a big fan of negativity. And so what I want to talk about is not really negative. It's just a conversation. Just, I want to hear your opinion on it because you kind of take things differently sometimes than me, sometimes not, but sometimes you can see something the same way I do, kind of, but in a different way. And so like I'm always kind of curious to hear about that. So, uh, did you hear about the kind of going ons of the boys of Tenacious D?
I did. Yes,
So, for anybody that didn't hear, Kyle Gass and Jack Black are, uh, are Tenacious D. I don't know if it was over the weekend or just recently or something. Kyle made a joke. Obviously, it's a joke. He's a comedian. He's in the band Tenacious D, which I mean, I quite think that they're good, but I mean, I don't think that they're expected to be taken completely seriously. Um, if you see some of the videos or some of their social medias, they're comedians, obviously. And he made a joke, and immediately his partner and alleged BFF, Jack Black, disavowed him. I was a bit surprised by that. I think I was a bit surprised of the kind of harshness of the disavowalment. At the same time, like I can understand that saying something as controversial as what he said, and I can understand that that is a violent thing, right? The context was a joke, and probably in time he would have, within hours, have heard some people would have heard the wrath of some, right? That he would probably, on his own accord, probably in a couple of hours say, "Hey, I'm sorry I offended anybody. You know, it was a joke." And maybe that would have been done with it. Um, but unlike what happened to Kathy Griffith, because Jack Black disavowed him, um, the tables have turned, and a lot of people are very upset at Jack Black. And as this kind of regards music, I'm just interested. And why I ask you and why I wouldn't necessarily not ask everybody is because um, I think that you handle difference of opinions in a respectful way, where some people might come on and just say, bleep everybody. Um, I think that talks are interesting. So what's your take on it?
Yeah, I think there's quite a few levels to it. You've mentioned they are musicians and comedians. They're not
Yeah.
politicians. So that's one thing to take into account. Um, but
Do you think
I've
that our
seen,
our culture though has like made it so that Jack Black's almost like forced to disavow him?
yeah, that was my going to be my next point. That at the moment everything seems so toxic and on a knife edge that any comment could be seen as no, no worst case scenario for Jack Black would be the next day a similar incident happens and um, you know Kyle Gass's wish comes true. Which, if Jack Black hadn't said what he said, he'd be in just as deep as Kyle Gass.
Yeah.
But I do think that they are comedians. They need to push boundaries. Maybe the joke wasn't in the best of taste, especially considering how recently the incident happened. But at the end of the day, I do think it was a joke. It was in poor taste. Do I think Jack Black should have stood up for his friend more? I think we need more details.
Yeah.
How close are they? Um, now, what are their political allegiances, if they have any? Um, and what else has been said that was said in public, but maybe things were said in private? So I don't think we have
Yeah, it's
enough
it's so hard,
information.
right?
Yeah,
We don't know.
to, yeah, we can only assume. And the thing that seems to happen so quickly these days is polarity, that there's no middle ground.
Yeah.
It's either you do what Jack Black did, you distance yourself, uh, you say it's wrong, or you do what Kyle Gass did and you make a joke and almost approve of it happening. And I don't want to say encourage, but you know what I mean. Prolong the situation. So it's so hard to have an opinion that's not polarized.
Yeah.
Now, I think my opinion is, regardless of he is a human being. He's somebody's parent, somebody's grandparent.
Yeah.
Um, it's not nice to be shot at.
Yeah.
He, um, no, even if he's the worst human being in the world, which I'm not saying he is or isn't, um, there are systems to stop people like that from coming into power, and shooting them isn't one
Yeah.
of those
Yeah. Yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
Um, so I think you have to try and avoid it's just such an explosive conversation and
And I do
situation.
I do believe that most people, if given some time and reflection, like some people just say things, just to be funny, like
Yeah,
something, and I am sure, absolutely sure, tons of people heard the same exact joke at the
yeah,
water cooler, at work, at whatever, right? None of those people had that kind of scrutiny on them,
yeah,
you know? I think that over time he probably would have just said, yeah, I messed up. I'm sorry. That was, you know, um, but I think that what made it such a bigger deal was just like just the harshness sounding. And, I have to understand too, Jack Black, I believe, has a family, and so you have to be protective of your family before you're protective of your friends in a
yeah,
lot of cases, so, um, he's, protecting their lifestyle, livelihood, all those things. And I get that as well. So it's tough, but the, you know, um, and we'll never know because we're not behind closed doors. Um, but my first reaction was, it, did he feel that he had to do it, um, for that pressure, of distancing yourself? And, um, because yes, well, because I believe Kyle's already been dropped from things, right? And
Yeah.
Jack's got a lot at stake. He's got like DreamWorks. I think that he's assigned on with them to do like Kung Fu Panda or whatever. So there's, a lot of good things, and I get that, but it is such a strange world that we live in, that we have to watch everything we say, and we have to sometimes watch everything that the people around us say.
Yeah, and most reactions, they're not calm and collected and looking at both sides. They're a lot of opinions are just totally biased.
Yeah, it
It's
just seems
it's
like there's not a lot of conversations, just more of like
blame,
countering.
yeah, blaming and talking about double standards, and instead of thinking a human being was shot, and that's wrong. Yeah, I think jokes. My mum sent me a. It was quite an amusing joke, I thought. She sent me a photo or a caricature of King Charles, saying that he's cancelled his trip to the US because he's too big a target, because of course he has his rather large ears, which which
That's funny.
yeah. So yeah, there is an element of it. You can joke about it, and it's a historic moment.
Yeah.
I'm not as familiar with US politics as you, but I think the last assassination attempt was your pen pal. Is that right?
Ronald Reagan.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
I believe that was the last assassination attempt.
what
Yeah.
would that be? 30 years. So it's a probably a once in a lifetime occurrence, and the photographs that came out afterwards are historic.
I'm sure his camp is very happy.
Yeah,
I mean, that's probably the greatest thing to happen to him.
yeah. No, I avoid the news. I try, I try to keep up with the facts, but that's become minimal, and everything, like you say, is talking heads. It's opinions. It's trying to tell you what to think, and I guess that's why this Kyle Gass Jack Black situation occurs. There's two very different views on the same situation.
Yeah.
There's no one in the middle that's saying, well, let's just have a look what happened.
Yeah.
It's all about blaming or inflaming, or what if this, what if this.
We should give people opportunities to kind of right themselves.
Yeah.
I think that that's my, maybe not a long enough opportunity was given. Um, Another music related thing that I wanted to talk to you about. And again, I don't know all the facts, but I kind of feel that it was unfortunate because it was so harsh. But a young lady recently sang the national anthem, and I'd be honest, I'd never heard of her. Um, and so this meme went around, and it was a pretty, like, I didn't think it was real at first. I thought this surely must be a joke because it was quite terrible, and it was like an isolated track. Um, and then I looked it up to say, who is this person? And it was a recording artist. The video just had, I mean, you obviously sometimes you go for the comments. You just want to read what people say, right? And obviously, I wanted to know who it was too because I didn't recognize her. And the comments are, the internet. The internet. Some are clever, some are quite clever. Some are mean. You're always going to have a balance of some that are quite clever that are not mean, but just some are mean. And then I thought, God, this poor girl, like this is just on Instagram, right? Like there's tons of social media out there, right? Where people are going to be lambasting this poor girl. And then I like looked it up, and then it said, I guess it happened a couple of days ago. And since then, she's already like released a statement that she was drunk and checked herself into rehab. And I was like, they that seems extreme.
Yeah,
And then I thought to myself, like, I wonder if, is that the case where she's like actually recognized, is that really the case? Which that's unfortunate, and people should be kinder and stuff like that. Or was it a case of she was a little nervous to be singing the national anthem, had a shot of whiskey, thought, I'm still a little nervous, had another shot of whiskey, went out there, um, and sang, and just did a terrible job. Have we made it in our society where somebody can't just say that very thing? I was nervous. I had a couple of shots of whiskey. Maybe I had too much. I'm so sorry. That's
yeah,
on me. I apologize. Meme away. I deserved it. Right?
yeah,
Like, are we not that society anymore? And I don't want to assume that this is what's happened. Like, we don't, like I said, we can never know. We can never know. So like, I don't want to make judgments, but that is a question of like, there's two circumstances. One where maybe somebody was, you know, did have a substance abuse problem, and the world is like horrendously mean, which doesn't help, right? Or somebody just kind of kowtowed to what they think can save their career or something instead of just being human. Like, I
yeah,
always go for be human, you
yeah.
know?
Own your mistakes and learn from them.
Yeah.
It's possible to have a bad day at the office.
Yeah.
People do.
Yeah. Just be honest about it and just be like, I messed up. Let me make it better.
Yeah,
I think that it was just surprising to me. Like, it was such a surprise. It was not the reaction I expected. Like, she said she was drunk and checked herself into rehab.
yeah.
It's like, can you imagine if every artist that was drunk just checked themselves into rehab? You'd have hardly any recording artists.
Yeah, well, not just artists, but every profession.
Right.
Every Friday morning, there'd be people checking themselves into rehab.
So yeah, so those were the two things that I found very, just made me kind of question like society, I suppose. Like,
Yeah,
what's
someone making a mess of, singing the national anthem or singing anything is forgivable, in my opinion.
yeah,
It's no different to playing a song with a guitar that's out of tune.
it
It's
happens.
Yeah, it happens. Or forgetting the words halfway through, or losing a drumstick, or you know,
What have you been listening to lately?
um, Lloyd Cole and the Commotions.
Really? I've never heard of him. What kind of a
Well, there's two or three songs that I really liked back in the day, so in the 80s, 90s.
Oh,
I
so
think
they've been
just
around. They've been
oh
around.
yeah, yeah. Um, and he does a song called Perfect Skin, which, if you listen to it, the vocals sound a lot like a cross between Billy Idol and David Bowie. Um, so I knew two or three of the songs. So I just started listening to more and more, and just the algorithm got me, and I'm getting deeper and deeper.
Is that
He's
how you
done.
found him?
Um, now
Like, again, like rediscovered?
how did I find him again? Um, I think I heard something just on one of my mixes, so one of the algorithm mixes, and I thought, yeah, I need to listen to him again.
Do you use those like mixes that Spotify comes up
Yeah,
with for
yeah,
you?
I
I
do.
have too. I didn't for a long time, and then one day I like played it, and I'm like, well, I rather like this, and it threw in some new,
Yeah, it's quite
uh,
scary. You hear things, and it's like, actually, this is a good recommendation for me.
right?
Yeah, it's not always something that needs to be scared, or you don't need to be afraid that, oh, this is the algorithm, so I can't like it. It's not organic. No, things can crop up. But I do notice when my algorithm goes off on a tangent, Um, if it goes towards like the Stone Roses and Oasis, I know it needs pulling back a little bit.
But sometimes like AI can warp how somebody sounds. And so I don't tend to like it to boost the sound of the vocals. Cause like I've had issues before where my vocals were really low, but then when I boosted the vocals, even my son said that doesn't even sound like you. I'm like, yeah, so I'll just leave it as is. You know, if it doesn't sound great, it doesn't sound great. That's life. I'd rather have it sound like me than not sound like me. However, there's so many cool things. I mean, how do you feel about AI? Are you excited about AI? Or are you apprehensive about AI? Or are you a little of both?
A little of both. I think in the correct hands, AI is an amazing tool.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a substitute for anything. I think it's supplementary. Whenever I've used AI to do anything, I don't just put a prompt in, something comes out, finished.
Yeah.
That's never happened. It's always been put a prompt in, and then you have to fine tune it. You have to check it. So you need to know what you want to get out of it,
Yeah.
and you need to know if it's not giving you that. If that makes sense.
Do you
There's
think
a
it
lot.
makes it easier for people to and I'll talk about music. I know for a fact it's easier for people to be more artistic with AI. I mean, even for me, the Sayonara Cupcake logo, um, I would say I would say that if you really look at the root of this, AI like prompted this whole Sayonara Cupcake podcast. Um, because I made the logo, I was just messing around with a digital art AI, and when I saw the radio, it just kind of then I just started messing around with stuff, and that's kind of how it came about. That's and Sayonara Cupcake just came from my head as a misheard lyric. And I just put it together and I'm like, oh, that just looks really cool. Like if I had a podcast, that's what it would look like. And then, you and Anuja are like, yeah, so just do it then. um, but do you think that it is helping musicians in the same way?
Ooh. Um,
Because I don't know as much as the capabilities as you do. Like you might like, can you like if you had some kind of maybe you had like some cool bass line and a cool guitar melody, can you plug that now into an AI and say, give me a couple of different samples of drum beats to this, where it does it for you? You don't have to like program the drums, but the whole AI will do that. Is that a current capability?
yeah, yeah.
Wow.
And you can put lyrics in and say, "Give me a chord sequence for this," and then that's where the prompts come in. So it would be, "Give me a, I want this song to be a happy song or an
Yeah.
uplifting song or a melodramatic song or a thoughtful song," and it gives you different options and you can try them, and then you could go and say, "Well, I like the verse, but the bridge is a little bit basic. Can you make it more complex?" So it certainly has those capabilities.
Do you think that is that writing a song or is that art? Or is it a little bit of both, do you think? And do you think that people are gonna I guess that I wonder how people will take it if like people will like scrutinize that and say, well, that's going to have its own category. Like, there's always like these different like award ceremonies, right? Best rap artist, best this. Are those kind of songs have to go into like an AI? Like, do you have to have a certain percentage of your song like written by you? And how does one know? And does it really matter if it brings people the same kind of joy or whatever? Does it matter?
I think that's a very deep question. I think everyone will give a different answer to that.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, because you've heard these songs where you can have music and then you can put someone else's vocals on top. You
Yeah.
can have you know Snoop Dogg doing a Muppet song or whatever it was
Yeah, yeah.
that we enjoyed. But I've seen it so many times. It's like, and a lot of the um, reels that I see now, it might be a guitar riff played in the style of 10 different guitarists.
Yeah.
So it's a famous guitar riff, but they'll do a Led Zeppelin version, then a Nirvana version, then a Pearl
Yeah.
Jam version, um, which I don't think would have been as possible before AI. Certainly
Yeah.
possible, but by very few people. So I think AI is a tool. It's helpful, but I don't think it's a substitute for humans. I think there will always be some human creativity that outdoes AI.
Yeah. It's crazy at the speed that it's come. You know, it's like so fast between ChatGPT 3 to 4 to the capabilities that people have. Um, it's amazing. It's funny because I would say probably around the time, I would say 7 years ago, it was probably like 7 years ago, because he was about seven. We would always we would always go around, my son and I, and just say, AI is good. AI is our friend. And it was just kind of a running joke whenever we had, um, we just talked about technology coming. And it was because of that thought experiment that I mean, a lot of people have read about it, but Rocco's basilisk, apparently it like freaked people out that it was even on the web, that um and people are like, this is dangerous that you even put this here. And there was like big debates by smart people. I mean, these were like serious debates, and it made you actually think of like, what would happen, right? Now we're in, 7 years from now, from when I first heard of it, to now, thinking, look at what AI is doing. You can actually train AI. Like, I can put in something to AI and say, can you bring it back to me and make it a little bit funnier? Just like in Interstellar, where you're like, less funny, make it less funny, make it more funny. Um, but you could do that with AI now, and it's kind of learning. And that's a little bit, cool and a little bit scary, you know? And how are we regulating it? Because we've done really poorly on a lot of things that probably could have been regulated, and we didn't.
You can't put the toothpaste back in the tube. It's started and it's not regulated. And the sad thing is, there's people out there who'll use it for bad things.
And it's going to happen quite fast.
Yeah,
I mean, I think this is stuff that's going to happen in the next 10 years, because look how fast AI has advanced in just 2 years. I mean, people have whole livelihoods now writing ebooks just on AI. So, but again, the good sides of it are, there's a lot of different, I think that it's really cool in the sense that people that might have music stuck in their head but might not be um, gifted in the sense of playing music or performing music, um, there's a kind of an outlet that they can maybe explore. So I
yeah,
think that that's cool. I definitely think that that's cool. And I do think that kind of at the end of the day, if it makes somebody happy, if there's some kind of a benefit, and who's to say it's a real song or not a real song? I mean,
yeah,
isn't all music just art,
yeah. It doesn't matter where it came from.
right? And isn't all art subjective?
Yeah,
So I think that, I used to, and I'll be honest, I used to kind of, I think it's because we do live in Bangkok, and just walking anywhere in Bangkok, that there's a lot of people from a lot of parts of the world that have come to Bangkok and use Bangkok as a backdrop for like TikTok videos and real videos. Like, you see them everywhere in Bangkok. They're the people always filming. And I remember a couple of years ago that yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I was like probably like a little bit of a mean girl in my head, like not outwardly a mean girl, but I never say anything outwardly as a mean girl. Like, but sometimes I'm thinking like, all right, little cuckoo, like you're in the middle of the street, like. But over time, I realized that they're not hurting anybody, right? Like, well, they're sometimes annoying. If people are rude, like that's not cool. I went somewhere yesterday, we got lost, and we ended up at this beautiful Chinese temple. Gorgeous. I mean, it looked like something that you would find in the Forbidden City. And I've never heard of it it was out in the country of in Thailand, and I don't think people know about it, or influencers would be there. And it was really cool because we asked, can we take pictures? And they were just like, yes, thank you for asking. You can take pictures, you can make videos, but no videos that are like, like for uh, basically the public. Like, don't make TikTok videos. You're not allowed to make TikTok
Yeah.
videos. And I'm like, oh, that's so cool that they said that, though. Like, because whereas I find no problem with people making TikTok videos. I've gotten older, and I find the value. I'm like, look at how many videos that we share to one another. And there's all kinds of videos. There's like touching videos, nice videos. I don't have a thing against content creators. I think I have a thing against content creators that are like rude to everybody else. Like, that kind of bugs me. And even then, I won't say anything. I'll just probably give a stink eye, but I'm not a confrontational person. Probably just give a stink eye. But I do see the value of it. But I thought that that was so cool to make that rule. Do you think that more places should make those types of rules?
I do. But maybe that's because I'm more old-fashioned and stuck in my ways, and I think videos should be done for memories, not just for the sake of making a video.
Yeah, but I think that, I mean, or like, for example, like when I was talking to Martin, like we went to the Van Gogh exhibit, even when we went to the Monet exhibit, there's always a lot of content creators doing stuff. And and I'll be honest, I've seen some of those types of videos, not particularly those ones that were there the same day that I was, but I've seen other content creators make videos of exhibits like that, which I've liked because they've made a really cool video. But do you think that maybe there needs to be a time where it's like, okay, between this hour and this hour, content creators can come in and that's your time to make your videos, and the rest is just for normal public to sit back and enjoy the experience? Because sometimes I feel that people paying for that kind of quiet experience of looking at something beautiful and can be distracting, but is that in itself entitlement? Or is it entitlement that somebody's filming, blocking your view? I mean, it's a weird thing, right?
Yeah,
It's
that's a good
tough to
idea.
cope
Yeah.
in today's world, right?
Yeah.
Who's entitled? Is it the person that feels like they have a right to sit quietly and look at it because they paid money? Or is it the person that thinks that they have the right to film, block everybody? You know,
I think
it's a
there should
weird,
always be some
that's why I just stay home.
consideration, regardless of what, if you're taking a photo or a video for yourself or for TikTok, you need to be aware and considerate of the people around you.
Yeah. I
Um,
saw this reel that this guy posted, um and he does a funny, it's like wordless, he doesn't really say much, but he just kind of films himself reacting, and but he puts like different videos. I think his name is like Mr. Noor or something like that, but he had this like video, and it was like all these different people on the beach, making their TikTok videos on the beach. But the worst of it was these two girls and somebody else filming them, and they were pretending to lug all this trash, like they were picking up, and like you could see that she was visibly pretending that it was so heavy, all the trash. And then in the end, they left all the trash
okay.
and then just left the beach.
Yeah,
That kind of stuff, that's not cool, man.
that's propaganda. That's just,
Right?
yeah,
But what has happened? And one of there was only one comment that I agreed with. I didn't look at all the comments, but it was towards the top, and it was an older lady, a silver-haired lady. So I'm going to say older lady. Um, and she just said, what happened to dignity? Which was a good question. I mean, I don't think that that's a bad question to ask, of having a
yeah,
little bit of dignity. Like some of the TikTokers on the beach.
yeah.
I'm not your gynecologist, so I don't need to see that far
Yeah.
in. You know what I'm saying?
I do.
It's surprising to me, like, and it makes me feel like, am I like super old or just super old fashioned? Both. But it 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 makes me sometimes Yeah, it reinforces not going outside. This just like just reinforces just like be at home.
Yeah.
There's nothing good for me out
Yeah.
there.
Look what's out there. That's not for
Yeah, look
me.
what's out there. I mean, we went I took my son to holiday to Pattaya, and I hadn't been for like 20, maybe 20 years or something to Pattaya. And we stayed at the and Pattaya, if people have never been to Thailand, it's very famous city for beaches and partying. Not the islands, but like not far from Bangkok. Like you could go to Bangkok and then just drive down to Pattaya. And we went, it was kind of like a deserted, it was like at the end of the beach where not all the nightlife, like the kind of end of the city, right? And we were walking on the beach and there was like, just like an older European man, buck ass naked, right? It's just like, I didn't know what to say, right? Then we walk a little more. There's another older European man, buck ass naked. But this guy, like, I don't know what he was advertising, right? I have no idea what he was advertising, but he was like face down, but he'd arched his back so his butt wasn't like he was waiting for something, right? And at that point, and like I said, I'm not a very confrontational person, but I did have my son, and uh, it wasn't like we were at first like, what the, like what are we looking at? Like, why is he doing that? And then I'm like, and then I did see like down the way that there was this family. They were from China. They had little kids, but they weren't far away, right? And I think it was maybe the protective nature of myself as a mother that I just thought I would start saying very loudly, "Hey, look at that pedophile over there." Just and I kept saying it quite loudly that he packed up his stuff and he like left. Um and I'm not saying he was a pedophile, but I'm just saying that dude, that's not cool, dude. Like why are we looking why? And some people could say you don't have to look there, but it's like there was nobody else on that beach, right?
Yeah.
I mean, what's happened with the world? And I'm not that old, so like what's happened with the world?
Yeah.
Can you tell me, or are you just left dumbfounded as well?
I'm just trying to imagine you and your son walking past and the conversation and the looks on your faces.
It was it was and on top of it all, it's like he should be concerned. I mean, he looked like burnt pork,
Yeah.
leather crispy. It's like you probably have skin cancer on top of everything else, but it's just like I don't understand like what is the position? Like are you trying like we couldn't understand are you trying is it was it like we were like is that a signal like to other people that he's looking for a certain something or is he like legit trying to tan his
Yeah.
nether passages
Yeah.
I don't and maybe that's exactly what he was doing like maybe somebody I mean some people
Even
I've
up his tan.
right like I don't know but it's like um I don't know what's happening in the world sometimes
Yeah.
and it makes me feel old and it makes me feel like yeah very very old but I don't think it's an old thing I think it's just times are changing rapidly
Are we allowed to have an opinion that's just, obvious? Or does it have to be one or the other? Feeling that you can't say something when you see something like that is is bizarre.
right like I usually don't say stuff but like honestly it was just like the first one I didn't say anything because he was just face down it was just his butt cheeks right like but the other one it was just like a little bit too much and like I said I could not for the life of me figure out what the position. But either way, I didn't like it.
Yeah.
And does that make me a bad person? Like, because I'm sure somebody could just say, oh, well, he's not harming you. You should have just dealt with it. But it's kind of like,
Yeah, but how far can you take that argument?
right?
Yeah.
Like, here's another, okay, this is related to music. I mean, it's hard not for people to see, but Kanye West and his current wife are parading around the world. And I, as a female, like, I don't care how empowering she might say she feels, it seems really degrading to me,
Yeah.
to be honest.
Yeah.
Um, because he's not doing it, right? And
Yeah.
you're getting the butt of all the jokes. Um, and yeah, it just seems quite degrading to me.
Yeah. The
But
moral
it,
compass
but
is strange.
and I saw that like a bunch of restaurateurs are like banding together to ban them, like outright ban them for indecency. But again, it goes to, I don't understand. Like, for example, if if a man, if he was doing that, if he was wearing clear fishnet undergarments, how long do you think that it would take for him to be arrested or called a pedophile?
Yeah. It's
Do you know
definitely
what I'm
double
saying?
standards. Yeah. Yeah.
Right? There is a double standard. Like that would be it. Like, he'd be outed faster than R. Kelly.
Yeah.
Look how long it took to out
Yeah.
R. Kelly. But Kanye goes around in fishnet underwears where we could see all his junk, and that's pretty much a career killer. But it's okay for him to parade somebody that I don't know if she's under the influence or anything. Like, we don't know these things. I mean, people could say that, like, for example, people look happy in photos, publicity, but we have no idea what goes on behind closed doors. But for just my perspective as a female, like, don't I don't see how it's empowering.
Yeah. It's degrading. Yeah.
I feel it's very degrading towards her, and I feel bad for her. And I feel bad that she can't see that it's degrading, and I feel bad that she can't see that she's the subject of much ridicule. Have we taken it too far?
It's hard to tell. It's
Yeah.
it's there is no single standard anymore. Everything is just all over the place.
Right? It's like a strange thing. Like, I don't mean to sound like a prude or anything, but I'm just like, sometimes I'm surprised. I'm
Yeah,
just like surprised, like,
and you're scared to criticize anything, which that's not freedom of speech.
right?
Yeah,
It's not at all. That's exactly what I said. I'm like, it's like, but there used to be, I mean, I'm American, you know, like, I used to come from a country where you could say what you feel, whether it was right or wrong. You had that protection to say what you feel. And in the last 20 years, cancel culture has completely nixed that. Like, you can't say what you feel. You have to say what everybody else is feeling. And if not, you're canceled. You may lose your job, you may lose your livelihood, you may lose your friends, you may have to move, you know. But I'm not going to lie, there's been times that I've been very happy with cancel culture.
okay.
In cases like, I remember a time that there was some like dentist dude that like flew somewhere like and shot a lion, and I was like totally fine with him being outed.
Yeah,
Um, or somebody went and shot an elephant and gonna post it all over the place. I'm not gonna lie.
yeah,
And I'm not saying that I'm against hunters completely, because I do understand that there are hunters out there that feed families. You know, I mean, like I said, I try to look at things from all perspectives and stuff, but I don't like trophy hunting.
yeah.
I'm not gonna lie. Um, but I'm sure you want to hear the some of the latest news of what's going on with the pigeon hospital.
I do.
We've had an emergency. We had to deal with a ruptured air sac, and it was quite scary because found a pigeon, seemed okay, but hadn't ate for days, didn't seem to have any kind of like bird flu or parasites or anything like that. But when I picked it up and felt it was like whole throat area was like a balloon, very, very tight. Looked it up. Um, and as a reminder, the vets here won't see it because it's a wild animal, and the wild animal rescue won't see it because it's not wild animal enough. So it's like the pigeons are in a gray area.
Yeah.
Um, and I am not a vet, but I looked it up and it seemed to be a, a treatable enough problem on the internet. So like I was upstairs and I sent a text message to my son and his best friend who's here for the summer. Um, Start looking up ruptured air sac and I'll be down shortly. Like what she got us into now. Um,
You did specify for a pigeon, right?
Initially no. I I
So
thought
they
it
thought
was
they might have been doing it on you.
yeah, so came down and yeah, I mean it was really tough and they did ask, they said, "Can you do it?" And I'm like, I don't really have a choice. Like I don't it's kind of one of those things where it's like if you ask me do I think I could do it? I will tell you no. I do not think I can insert a needle into a pigeon's throat and give him a tracheotomy. But the situation was he was going to die. And then they found videos that said he could explode. And I was like, oh God, like I don't want to have an exploding pigeon. And I don't even know if that's the case or not, but my son said he could explode and was running around the house saying the pigeon could explode. And so I was like, okay, let's just get this done with. So we, sterilized the needles. We did everything that all the different, rewatched several different videos just to like kind of have a round kind of consensus of what to do. And then once we did that, the air escaped. Then the pigeon started like throwing up all this water that was inside. But then he was like fine and better. And then the next day, let him go. I wanted to talk about Desmond, Lord D. Dickie McGowan, Triple D McGowan. Um, you're from Yorkshire,
I am.
which I found really cool that I follow this account. It's like Yorkshire Fossils or something like that. And that's really cool. Have you ever, I just have to ask you, like, is it well known or is this just like this guy's got an account? Is it well
Uh,
known? Like, is that a thing that Yorkshire people know about that you have lots of fossils at the beach?
no, but I can believe it. No, I recognise the places on the account that you showed me.
Did you, I mean, like, I guess
But
that's the question.
I've
Like,
never
did you
been
guys know
fossiling.
about it? Like, if I knew that there was fossils at a local beach, I'd probably be at the local beach immediately. So I just wondered, like, was it a well-known thing in Yorkshire that there's fossils everywhere, or is it just like kind of new information because this guy has this really cool account?
It's new information to me. My parents probably know about stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're more well versed in the history and the what happens locally.
How far is Yorkshire from Manchester?
How far is Yorkshire
Like
from
driving?
Manchester? Um, it takes 1 hour to drive from my parents' house to Manchester.
And the reason I ask is like, I wonder because Manchester is a huge place, a huge source of, I would say, like ley line energy regarding music, right? So
Yeah.
many bands and stuff have come out. Do you think that that sound influenced Yorkshire more than any place else?
Um, well, I think Manchester and Liverpool are very close to each other, more so than Yorkshire is to Manchester or Liverpool. But they all have this industrial, hard-working nature, and I think they're all part of the north of England. You can lump them all together, although there are local rivalries.
Yeah,
The War of the Roses. And
yeah,
so Manchester is Red Rose County and Yorkshire is White Rose County, Lancashire and Yorkshire. Um, I think there is a north-south divide. So, the Manchester music, the Newcastle music, the even the Scottish kind of music. is more relatable to people from the north of England than the south of England. I remember Britpop in the 90s. There was very little question about whether you were Oasis or Blur, because Blur were this very southern London sounding band, and Oasis came from the north. They were more gritty, more outspoken, um, less likely to conform with what they were expected to do. They just did their own thing. Um, so yeah, I had much more uh, in common with Oasis's thinking than Blur's thinking. Blur was a lot more alien to me. It was very uh, Cockney sounding, Dick
Yeah.
Van Dyke, Mary Poppins, almost
Yeah.
theatre musical. Whereas Oasis, you could tell they just plugged their guitars in, turned the volume up, and made some noise.
Yeah. I mean, as an American, I guess I never really thought about that from like a British perspective of how a band from a certain area sounds. Cause a lot of times you just think, oh, they're a British band. And you
Yeah,
kind of like lump it all together. And maybe that might be the same where British people just think, oh, that's an American band and kind of lump that together. But having like even how they sound when they're singing, I guess, yeah, I could have that. I suppose you would hear it more in American music, and I say that in quotes, like maybe a country band versus like a band from the Pacific Northwest. But yeah, I guess that really would have kind of an influence. I didn't
yeah,
really think about that.
yeah. Even earlier than the Britpop. So I'd say in the 80s, you'd know that someone like Depeche Mode was a band from the south, and the Pet Shop Boys was a band from the north, or the Smiths was a band from the north. You know, not just in the sound, but also in the lyrics.
Yeah, I was just
Um,
going to ask, lyrically speaking, was there a difference like that you could relate more to the northern bands versus the southern bands?
yeah, because I found the northern bands were more direct and honest, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Um, so they almost the lyrics came straight out of what they were feeling,
yeah,
whereas bands in the south tried to make it sound nicer or more. Uh,
poetic.
yeah, I was going to say pretentious, but poetic sounds better. um, very much so.
Wow. Yeah, I really didn't think about that. Um, and how did you discover like music when you were young? You have three brothers or two brothers.
Yeah,
You're
both
the
of them
oldest of
younger
three.
than me. Yep. I think what my parents were listening to, um, had a big influence.
What was your dad
Um,
listening to?
um, so they had actual vinyl records, and in the car they had cassettes.
Did they have eight tracks?
No, so we had cassettes in the car and LPs at home, and I can almost picture the LPs lined up. Now, so there was things like Brothers in Arms, Dire Straits. Um, they had
Nice.
one of the Genesis
Oh,
albums, Phil Collins, um, No Jacket Required, I think it was,
nice.
Alison Moyet, Whitney Houston.
So dad had some good
Yeah,
picks.
Michael Jackson. We had Thriller, Kate Bush, Hounds of Love, Eurythmics. Yeah,
Would you say that your mom and dad were like a family that liked music? Did they like have music on a lot?
yes. Um, it was always on in the car. At home, it was either if you weren't watching TV, you were listening to a record.
I find that a lot of my friends that are like really, really into music, that's something that they said, like almost everybody, that music was on a lot growing up.
Yeah,
And so they talk about, you know, what they heard their parents playing and all good bands,
yeah.
pretty much
And
everybody that I spoke
even
to.
even now, my parents refuse to have the TV on in the morning, so there's no TV. They just listen to the radio. They know the actual radio, so
Yeah.
they listen to Radio 2. And my mum doesn't like to stream music, so even now she has her vinyl. If she really likes them, she'll get it on vinyl, or she'll get it on CD. Now they still listen to CDs. My dad streams some music, but my mum just likes the touch, the feel,
Yeah.
especially the vinyl, the sound of the crackling at the start.
Yeah.
Um,
What did she like listening to?
she was more into. She likes more modern music than I do. Uh, so she'll listen to people like Gregory Porter,
Hmm.
Lewis Capaldi,
I wonder
Paloma
how
Faith
how did she find that music just on the radio?
on the radio. Yeah, so Radio Two. So that's so Radio One was always the big radio station, BBC Radio One, and BBC Radio Two is more for the middle-aged generation.
Yes, I
Um,
know this.
and often they have guests who come in and they interview. So she'll hear the songs of, I don't know, Paloma Faith, for example, but then there'll be a time when Paloma Faith comes in and interviews with whoever the DJs are now, Zoe Ball, Graham Norton, I'm not sure who it is now. Um, and they also do live sessions, sometimes with a big band, sometimes acoustic. So that's how my mum gets into music, and she listens to the backstories of these people. She listens to the influences of these people, and if it's somebody that she's liked before, then she really latches onto them and listens to them and recommends them.
Did she listen to Lulu?
You did, yes.
No, I only say that. I say that because I love this show. Absolutely fabulous. One of my favorite shows in the world. I love the show. But there was a scene, if you've never watched Absolutely Fabulous, there's a scene it's Adina Monsoon is the mother. If you just have to go look it up, but if you know what it is, Adina's going to be on the radio and she's all excited. She's going to be on BBC Radio, and then it turns out that it's like BBC Two, and then she's like, oh, but her daughter, who's like totally straight, also is like, oh no, because it's her. That's her station. And so she doesn't want her mother to be on her station that she likes to listen to with all the, as she described, all the kind of boring stuff. So it was kind of funny. Um, do you think, did you ever find, because you have two younger brothers, did your younger brothers ever bring home stuff that you weren't, maybe you wouldn't necessarily be interested in, but they kind of brought in something that you liked? Or was
no, I
it,
don't. No, I don't think they ever had much of an influence on what I was listening to. Um, Maybe my middle brother, he was very heavy into Michael Jackson and Prince.
mhm,
Um, and at the time, I didn't appreciate Prince, but since I've realised what a genius he was.
mhm,
Michael Jackson, well, he was just Michael Jackson.
yeah,
Everyone knows Michael Jackson.
yeah,
Um, and my youngest brother, he's a lot more passive with music. He's become more respectful of music as time's gone on.
mhm,
He appreciates more music, um, but he's never been one who has found music and tried to introduce it to others.
yeah,
Yeah, he'll if something's on that he likes, he'll listen to it, but then that's it. He doesn't follow it up, so he doesn't say, "Oh, who was that?"
yeah,
I'll find out something else they did. I think his favorite band was Queen, and
yeah.
that was it. So he liked
Do you
Queen.
do you think that it's harder for kids to discover music today because there's so many other things that can grab their attention? Or
Yes.
do you think that they'll find it?
Um, no, I think it's done through. I think there's an element of luck,
Yeah,
um, especially when it comes to. You mentioned memes earlier.
yeah,
I think
yeah,
if a song is on a meme, then it becomes. I don't know if popular is the right word. It becomes more famous or
yeah,
infamous.
yeah.
I think that's how Rick Astley
I've
is
just I've
so well known.
yeah, but I've discovered, and that's why like I love reposting um music. You know, I love reposting music. Sometimes I'll, in 1 week I like to repost stories on my Instagram because I like sharing music, and maybe somebody might discover something that they didn't hear or not,
Yeah.
and there's no, and it's kind of all genres. What was really cool this week is my son made me a playlist of, he came and he's like, hey, I made you a playlist. And this is like kind of stuff I'm checking out now. I thought that was so cool. And like he had a band, Tame Impala, and I never listened to Tame Impala before, but and no reason, just like life. You listen to stuff you like. You don't get around to listening to everything, but I've liked some of the stuff. And he had some other artist, TV Girl, and it's been cool. And I asked him, I said, how did you discover it? And he said, just like listening around, clicking on this, clicking on that. And I found it. I liked it. Tame Impala, he heard Jake talk about it because it was something on Jake's episode that he said that he was starting to listen to it too. So I think that's kind of what this all is about. Like Sayonara Cupcake. I mean, there's talking about other stuff, right? I did put on, I don't know if anybody noticed I changed it, but when I had Martin on, I was trying to explain it to him because he's my best friend, but he wasn't really listening to the podcast because, life, whatever. But I was like trying to tell him, I'm like, it's about music, I said, it's not for everybody. He's like, you should change it to say it's not for everybody. So I did. So now just my description says okay, not for everybody. But I think that's pretty, accurate. It's not for everybody.
That's true
I
about
still,
most things, though.
right? And I think that, like, um, I think that people that find it, they listen to it, they like it, and they stick around. That's cool.
Yeah.
That's all it, like, I don't need like 10,000 followers. Like, I'd be lucky if I had 500 people listening. But last I saw, it's gone up from 248 to 329 that have listened full all the way through. I think that that's awesome.
It is.
I think that's super awesome. And that's it,
That is. That's like a
those are my
theatre full
those are
of
my
people.
peeps.
Yeah. Theatre full of people, and none of them left early. They all stayed to the end,
That's
right?
awesome. Especially like since I ramble, as everybody's pointed out. I like to just ramble. Um, no, but I think that people that, listen, I think that that's super, that there's obviously something that maybe they find comforting or resonating or funny or whatever. And I think that's special, honestly. Like I had this idea, and I told you about this idea that I had, that I wanted to do kind of like a side podcast that under like Sayonara Cupcake, but not hosted by LV, but I maybe like Sayonara Cupcake around the world. Like I really had this desire to talk to a person from every planet, from, but yeah, that
That'd be cool
too.
as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be super cool as well. Like a person from every country. Like I would love to talk to a person from every country
Yeah.
because I have so many questions. Like I legit have so many questions. Like what was like life like? Um, how are like? There's just so many questions. I mean, can you imagine having like a person from, I don't know, Botswana in front of us? Like, don't you have like, aren't there questions as a human that you would have for a person
Yeah.
from Botswana?
Definitely.
Like for me, like life is all about like I just want to know what's going on. Like I thought yesterday, I sat there and I was watching. I'm going to send you a video of it, you personally. Maybe I'll even make a little video and put it on Sayonara Cupcake. But I was watching the birds and they were doing the bird bath thing that I made them. And then in came a squirrel into the video. And I was like, it's fascinating to me. Like I can watch animals for hours, like any animal, because I just start thinking like, this is an earthling on this planet. That's what they're doing. And I'm kind of lucky that I get to observe whatever it is that they're doing. It's fascinating to me. Like totally, like I could honestly just spend hours watching the Egyptian fat-tailed gerbil.
Yeah.
Because it's just like this tiny creature that is existing. and he's on this planet, and somehow life made him.
Yeah, he's just going about his business.
Yeah, it's and he'll never think about the complexity of this universe. Like that will never enter his mind, but he's just going to exist anyway. So I find that absolutely fascinating. And that's what made me start thinking about I would love to talk about life to different people. Like, what was their life like? What was their upbringing like? What was the weather like? What's school like? What's it
Yeah,
like? What's your average day like? Um, because this is like a really cool planet, right? And there's all these different things happening, and I just want to know more about it.
yeah. I was thinking this morning, this is a random thought. I think the biggest compliment that this will just be me, it won't be anyone else. The biggest compliment you can get is when a dog comes and sits next to you.
Oh yeah.
I just think, wow, now this dog has chosen to come and sit next to me.
I feel that way though, for me, with all animals.
Yeah,
I told you not too long ago, I had a bird and he looked like he was in bad shape for whatever reason. And I just said to him, I'm like, if you need help, come to me. And I put down my hand and it like walked right into my hand.
yeah,
Like, I don't know if I told you or news this. And I'm like, it just walked into my hand. And I'm like, all right, I'll help you. Like, and gave him some food, some electrolytes, ended up being okay. Like, went off
yeah,
and about. But I always think that, like, I feel like really good when that happens. I'm not going to lie. Like, that makes me feel better than a lot of things in
yeah.
life.
I think the trust between an earthling and a human is just there's something so pure and beautiful about it. You
Yeah.
just if I take my dogs to the vet, they're scared because it's a vet. But if I'm there, they feel okay.
Yeah.
They just lean on me or they look at me, and if they have eye contact, they know everything's going to be okay. And I think there's just nothing more beautiful and pure than that trust between two creatures.
I used to have a vet. I'm going to shout out my vet. His name was Tracy Smith, and he's a vet in Poway, California. Um, but and he was like my animals vets for like a long time. But he was like so great because they all had kind of a nervousness about going to the vet, and so I had a doggo Argentino, which is a lot of people mistake it for a pit bull, but they're a little bit taller than pit bulls. They're quite tall. But they look like a pit bull. So I had him. He was like 100 pounds. I had a pit bull, and Dharma was like 70 pounds. And then I had two cats, and I would take them all at the same time because they would get nervous. So it's like dealing. And we literally at that time, we bought a car, and it was just like the pet taxi. And it was literally just to ferry pets around because it was just an old car. It was like some old Honda Prelude. It was just like, this is the car that's going to like ferry animals to the vet, to the beach, to whatever. But yeah, they found comfort in each other, which I find funny, like cats and dogs.
Yeah,
It's like if the cat was with the dog, then the dog was fine at the vet.
yeah,
If the cat wasn't there, the dog was needy. And it was like, it was a big pit bull, but he was
yeah.
like needy. You put the cat there. And when they're at home, that cat hated that dog. Like Jake hated my dog. And the dog at any time could have killed him,
Yeah,
right? Totally killed him. But he was there first. The dog came after. So there was like kind of like there was this understanding of like he was top cat. He was there
yeah,
first. And it's funny because a lot of people say, oh, pit bulls are so terrible, they're so horrible. And it's like I'd be woken up so many mornings where my dog was at the top of the stairs barking because the cat is down at the bottom of the stairs and won't let him pass to go outside. And the dog's just sitting there barking like, Mom, do something.
yeah,
Um, Animals, I love animals. I love observing animals. I just find them fascinating, like
yeah,
totally fascinating.
yeah. The back of a
Um,
dog's head. If you're sitting behind a dog, or you just sit the back of a dog's head, just there's something. Just I don't know. It's hard to describe. What is that dog thinking? What are they? No, just what are they looking at?
Yeah.
I could just watch them for hours.
People sometimes ask, I don't know why, like I get asked this by children. I get asked this a lot. Like, if you had one superpower, what would your superpower be? And I always said, I wish I could understand every earthling, like every human. I could understand whatever language you spoke, every cricket, I just want to know what everyone's thinking. Like, that would be what I would want to, that would be what I would want to know.
Yeah.
And I would love to be able to communicate with people. That would be so cool. I
Yeah.
remember I had this book. It was called The Children's Guide to Knowledge. And it was like done in the 70s or something, but it was such a cool book. And it was like really thick, but my dad got it for me when I was like 5. But in this book, it are the dogs okay?
Yeah, they're okay. There must be
Um,
someone, a delivery
it
or something.
it had in it how to say
Very
6
appropriate
things,
that they're
right?
made.
Right?
Yeah.
Um, how to say 6 things in like every language. Like, not every, it was like 130 languages or something like that, right? But as a kid, I just memorized it. And I have found over time that just those 6, and it was like yes, no, hello, thank you, goodbye, good night, or something. Like, it was like simple,
Yeah.
just simple. But I don't know how much in life that has been so useful to me, but also quite terrible, because then I'll say something and then somebody assumes like I could speak it, and then it's like the floodgates open. I'm like, no, I just know 6 things. I'm so sorry. Like, I'm a fraud. I'm a
Yeah.
fraud. I know 6 things. I was just trying to be nice. And they're like, oh, okay. But yeah, just like knowing, just people will like light up. But I found that it's been such a conversation starter, or people feel at ease. Like, I remember going somewhere and meeting somebody, and they said that they were, from Poland. And I said, "Oh, dzień dobry." And they just all of a sudden,
Yeah.
just that change. I like that. I like seeing that change in people. I think it's
Yeah.
so beautiful. Of like, oh, somebody understands me. Maybe it's just that
Yeah.
it's like they feel like a connection or something. I
I
think
don't.
that that's kind of beautiful. So it doesn't matter to me, interspecies, like some of those are some of the best videos you see, like on Reels, or like, I don't look at TikTok, which is weird because we post on TikTok, but that's um but where you see like the like friendships between 2 different species of
Yeah.
animals,
Yeah.
those are my favorite. I love that, because it's like they had this one where they showed drone footage of a bear and a wolf that spent like 10 days together, and then they just went their separate ways. But for 10 days they were like, and they showed them kind of being playful. And the consensus was, I think from experts that looked at it, that said that they were probably just young and didn't know what to do.
Yeah.
But that's kind of sweet.
Yeah.
But of course, then I cried, because then I was like, well, what happened after 10 days? Then they lost their friend. I overthink when it comes to animals. Um, but I think that that's really cool. Interspecies friendships. There was like some dude with a lioness, and I was all about Born Free. Was Born Free big when you were a kid?
No, not for
Was the
me.
song big?
What's the song? Am I in trouble for asking that?
No, there's like a Born Free song. It was like very popular, like when it was a book by Joy Adamson, and she somehow nursed a lioness named Elsa, and it was a great book. But as a kid, like, this was the version of Reels today. Like, she had pictures. She was living in Africa. She and her husband took all these pictures of the lioness, um, and then of Elsa, and growing up with Elsa. And as a kid, that was the only way that you could, like, you didn't have all this access. Now, there was like, just a couple of channels, 5, 6, 7 channels when I was a kid. That was it, right? So National Geographic was the way for me to see the world. Like, I was obsessed with National Geographic. That was like the coolest magazine in the world. I just spent hours and hours looking through that. Like, And I remember even when like CDs came out, CD-ROMs came out, like you could buy like they digitalized like all the previous editions and you can get it. And I remember my dad got it for me because it was so cool. I was just talking to my mom about it the other day. Like, do you remember that iconic photo of the Afghan girl with the piercing blue eyes? And she
Yeah,
had like
yeah.
on a red thing, like everybody knows that. And my mom and I were talking, and she said, whatever happened to her? I'm like, well, that photographer, he went back and he actually somehow found her and did like a now type of a thing. And you could see that her life's been rough. You know, you could see somebody that's had a rougher life than other people might have, you know, just the lines on the face or whatever, you know. But yeah, I mean, that Jacques Cousteau and his books, because up until then, like kids, man, they got it so easy these days. Like the things that they could see, it's so cool. Like I don't think, I mean, there's so much cool stuff out there. Like I, I think that that's why the reels are kind of cool because you can get that mixture of good and funny reels. Um, I mean, I've seen some dark humor reels today that I'll send some to you that I wouldn't send to everybody because probably somebody would be like, that's not right. But I know I could send it to you and you won't judge me. You'll just be like, that's dark, but that's funny. Um, but you know, it's like the whole like algorithm thing that we were talking about. I feel very protective of my algorithm and it is AI kind of stuff. But at the same time, like I think I sent you a video of like the suggested reels that I get. And I'm like, look at it. It's so perfect. I'm like, look at this stuff that this is what it's determined and everything is like beautiful. There's like no politics on there. There's I'm like, God, I hope that us talking about stuff doesn't ruin my algorithm. But there's like no politics on there, nothing like bad, but just like a cool balance of like, here's all this tech stuff. Here's all this music stuff. There's more of the music stuff than anything else, which is cool, which is like, I feel seen. And maybe that sounds like really crazy, but like, I feel seen by AI and that kind of feels good.
Yeah.
Like I can admit,
Validated. Yeah.
I could admit, like, hey AI, you got me. Like that's kind of cool. I've not seen the movie Her, but I've heard that everybody tells me I should see it with Joaquin Phoenix. Have you seen it?
I haven't seen it.
Scarlett Johansson. I don't know if it's Johansson. I want to say it's Johansson because it sounds like from that area it should be Johansson, but maybe it's been anglicized, so it's Johansson. But Scarlett, the Scarlett, like, there's no other Scarlett, right? Aside from O'Hara, but she's like, I think she's gone. I don't want to make her dead when she's not dead. Um, but the Scarlett is like the voice of AI, but like Joaquin Phoenix starts to like, I believe, I'm not sure because I haven't seen it, but starts to develop feelings for this unseen AI person because they can respond almost in a way of having a person like if you're talking to a person on the phone and it's not a video call, like who's to say that's not some computer generated voice? Like it can be these days actually.
Yeah.
Um which is weird because now when you think about it, like when I was young, there was that whole middle of the night, late night phone. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Phone companionship, right?
Yes.
And people probably paid exorbitant amounts of money for phone companionship late at night. But now it's not even necessary, like to pay exorbitant amounts. You could just pay like a monthly fee for AI, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a very strange world. It's kind of, I mean, what's that other Schwarzenegger film? Total Recall. It's kind of like we're getting into those times a lot faster.
Yeah.
Like that Total Recall, I think is going to be more the reality of if you're looking back at like Happy Days. We're closer to Total Recall than we are to Happy Days times.
Yeah. It's true.
I kind and for me, I'm having Happy Days withdrawal. Like kind of like Happy Days.
Yeah, it was
Like,
wholesome. It was,
right?
yeah,
Do you think that we'll get back to wholesomeness, or is it just
I think it's gone.
that
I hope I'm wrong, but I
legit
think it's
makes me
gone.
sad?
Yeah,
That legit makes me sad. Like, I like wholesomeness,
yeah,
you know? Like, even watching, like, when you watch Goonies, there was somebody did a reel about this, one of my favorite movies, Sandlot, which is a great movie. And there's like a wholesomeness about that as well. And it's like, that really breaks my heart if it's gone,
yeah.
you know? Or is it just in populated countries? Can you still get wholesomeness like in places where there's not a lot of technology? Can you get wholesomeness in Mongolia in a yurt?
Maybe
But
we need to find out.
I bet you the kid on the yurt has a handheld device, guaranteed.
Yeah, and Mongolia is. No, we don't want to get into politics again. So I'll save that for after.
You know, Mongolia though, like I had a friend that works in media, and he went to Mongolia, and he said that like the internet service and everything was better than here at the time. And that was surprising and shocking to me. And then I thought, oh, maybe not, you know, they are closer to
Well,
China.
yeah, in Mongolia they celebrate somebody's birthday, which is somebody not to be admired.
Is it Genghis Khan?
Worse. Well, I don't know. That's maybe not worse. More recent.
Genghis Khan, though, man,
Yeah.
when we're talking about like if we're going to go down rabbit holes of like rulers, he had a pretty big chunk of. Do you think that he was underrated? I mean, do you think that he was undervalued and underrated, or do you think that he got enough of?
I think if he was around now with social media, I think he'd be a lot bigger than he was then.
Can you imagine? Can you imagine if you had like maybe somebody should make an AI show of that, of like
Yeah.
what would happen if you had like Alexander with social media today? Do you think that
Yeah.
he would be more popular than Genghis Khan with social media? You know, like
Yeah.
who would be like the
Who'd have the most
popular?
followers? Yeah.
Yeah, who would have the most followers?
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of crazy to think about. Like a lot of people sit there and say, okay, look at how vast the Roman Empire was. Look how vast the British Empire was. But look how vast when you're talking about like the Dutch went out on boats and did a lot of stuff as well. Like I wonder how they would fare in today's times.
Yeah.
Are you are you binge watching any shows lately?
Not really. I just finished The Acolyte, which is the new Star Wars series, which I recommend watching.
Um, you know, I'm not a big TV person. We're not big TV in this house, but somebody gifted us with Disney Hotstar Plus, um, which is a gold mine. And
Yeah.
I'm not endorsing nobody. Disney is not paying me at all, but I'm going to say that it was my kind of assumption, and I didn't look into it because like priorities, right? It's like way down on my list. Like TV is way down on my list, so I didn't even like. I just made an assumption it just had like cartoons and stuff, and because I think of when I think of Disney Plus, I think of Disney Channel. To be
Yeah.
honest, and so it's just like there's probably nothing that I want. But then it's got so much good stuff. It's got all of Star Wars, which I love Star Wars. It's got all of Marvel. I'm not going to lie. I love Marvel. It's got all of Pixar, a huge Pixar fan. Um, and I was actually talking to somebody about this. Although I like the nostalgia of Disney cartoons and animations, like getting older, it's like, what the? uh, when you think about some of it, right? Like Bambi, boom, right
Yeah.
away, gone, mom's gone, violence, right? I've still not watched that movie to this day. My dad had to take me out of the theater screaming. It was the Carlsbad Mall in San Diego. Well, it was in Carlsbad. Had to take me out screaming over his shoulder because Bambi's mom got shot. I've never watched it again. But let's fast forward a couple years later, Old Yeller. Like, really, Disney? Why do you have to do me wrong with like, why did we have to have these types of traumas? um, waiting for a prince in a glass box to come and save you. Like all these kind of things, right? I like Pixar. Like Pixar's got a mechanical robot falling in love with a mechanical robot. That's okay. Like I love Pixar. But also just Lost. I'm so happy to watch Lost again. I told you I love doing it every couple of years because I'm obsessed with the idea of time travel.
Yeah.
Not that I want to do it, but I'm obsessed with the idea of it. And I think that it first started as a kid. Um, I saw uh, the Time Machine. Rod Sterling was in it.
Yeah.
Um, and we had that. That was one of the first movies we had on Beta, Betamax.
Awesome movie.
And um, I loved that movie. And I probably watched it 100 times, just over and over and over. And that kind of blew me away because there's so many paradoxes to discuss. And I remember being under the age of 12 and really thinking heavily about these before I even discovered like music, before I discovered Depeche Mode, right? Because that I would say that discovering music was a huge kind of learning, just something that changed me, right? But Time Machine, H.G. Wells, that really changed me because it's you start thinking about like what happens if something happens to you in the future. You can't go back. What happens if you go back in the past? There was all that. And then Back to the Future came a little bit later. And so that made me start to think about that again. Then I read the book, then I read the book. Actually, it was the last book too that I read my dad before he passed, like when he was sick and ailing in the hospital, because it was something that we read together. And so that I found fitting was like the last book I read to him. Maybe I'll read it. I don't know if the copyright's over on H.G. Wells. If there's no copyright and I'm allowed to read it, maybe I'll do an audio book of H.G. Wells. I would love to do an audio reading of H.G. Wells' Time Machine because I think it's such a great. If you haven't read the book, it's such a great book. If you don't have time to read it, maybe I'll just read it and you can listen to it like a podcast because it's such a great book. Um, so those two things, but then the final countdown. And I was a kid that grew up on a Navy base. And from my dad's office, I could see the Naval Air Station QB Point runway. So I would watch planes do touch and goes. I'd see the aircraft carriers come in, dock at Leyte Pier. So I was obsessed with the Navy. I loved everything about the Navy. I thought the Navy was so cool, growing up around the Navy, growing up around planes, running around on aircraft carriers. So when this movie came out, The Final Countdown, and it's got an all-star cast, it's got Martin Sheen, it's got Kirk Douglas, it's got James Ferrantino, um, and it deals with time travel. I don't want to give too much away for people that haven't seen it. I think it's I don't know who would have it. I know at some point you could buy it off Apple. Um,
I mean, a lot of them find it.
it's if not, I have ways to get it to you. Um, such a great thing though. But then I found that later on that the writers of Lost also found that a really great movie. And so that made me really happy because I was obsessed with time travel. And I don't think that I'm giving anything away because Lost has been around for a long time. So nobody should be mad at me for saying that there are topics of time travel in Lost, but it's really quite cool. Um, you've watched Lost in its entirety,
I have numerous
and
times.
how did how did you like it?
How did I like it? That's a very open question.
Yeah,
Um, I watched it at the time, so I couldn't binge watch it. So I was watching. I don't know if you were watching it week by week as well, or if you.
no,
Yeah. So
it's funny. It's funny because I actually. And I was a different person back then. I'm just going to say I was far more cynical back then but I really thought it's a story about a plane crash. Like, okay, so what's it going to be like? Um, how long can you go? They're going to get found or not going to get found. They're going to survive.
Yeah.
What's it going to be like? Um, I didn't have like, so I just didn't watch it. And then I think that sometimes the more hype something gets, I don't want to watch it also.
Yeah.
Like Game of Thrones, that happened to me with Game of Thrones. Like I heard so many people talking about Game of Thrones that I'm like, I'm not going to watch. I refuse to watch that.
Yeah.
That's just my stupid being a rebel. Like there's no basis of it whatsoever. It's just like me being a rebel. Like I'm not going to watch it.
Yeah. I
Um,
watched.
but then it turned out like then I and but then and this is oh God, I hope I don't like get busted. But Marty like found some site at one point. He's like, dude, there's a site here and they've loaded up like season 1 and 2. This is before streaming. This is like before I think this is before iPhones even, right? So he's just like, they have all these seasons and I had nothing to do that summer. So like I'm like, I'll just watch one. And then I was like, ooh, I'm gonna watch two.
Yeah.
And then two became three. And then I remember like around episode 8, it was like 4 in the morning, and I called Marty and I'm like, dude, this show is so good. He's like, oh, I know, I just started watching it too. And he's like, I'm on episode like whatever, 13. And he's like, it's crazy, man. It's crazy. I'm like, oh, wait, catch up, and that's how it started. I was
Yeah.
obsessed.
Yeah. No, I watched it from the start. I remember watching the pilot on TV and just I was hooked from the start.
I
But
think the
I had to have
characters are
the
great.
yeah, I had to have the patience of waiting a week in between episodes. And I remember that was showing the same time as 24, one of the seasons of 24. And me and my dad would watch it every week. And we watched Lost and 24. I think they were on the same day, both on Sunday. So we'd watch both. No, and that was a bonding session for me and my dad as well.
I need to watch. I do like Kiefer Sutherland, and never, like I said, it's hard for me to get into TV.
Yeah,
Um, and I don't think that I could have done the week by week, except when I was. It was when I was pregnant. Was when it was the final season, and so that was tough.
yeah,
It was just like because I already had so many emotions in me because I was pregnant, and that it was like waiting week to week. I love. I think that I'm a big fan of really well developed characters. And I think that I hadn't been a big fan of a show probably since, I mean, at the time, probably since West Wing. Did you ever watch West Wing?
no, I thought you were going to say Happy Days then.
Oh no, West Wing was a great show. Aaron Sorkin's a great writer, in my opinion. Just a great writer. It's like such a, you would really like it.
Yeah, maybe
Um,
that's.
it's
I'll
about
give it a go.
American politics,
Yeah,
obviously. Martin Sheen is Jed
yeah,
Bartlett, the fictitious president. But man, he would write stuff for Martin Sheen to say that, man, I'd be in tears. I thought, man, this is a good write. Like I appreciate good writing, whether you're writing lyrically as a musician or as a poet, as a writer. I'm a fan of words.